Welcome to UpYourStack Podcast. I'm Noah Berk, host of the show. I'm also the co-founder of OBO, an elite HubSpot Solutions Partner. Every week on UpYourStack, we feature some of our favorite HubSpot app partners and developers that have built their applications on HubSpot or have integrated with HubSpot to help you get the most out of your HubSpot tech stack. And today, I'm really excited to have my guest, James, who's with DataWarehouse.io. James, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's our pleasure. And James, I just want to dive right in. DataWarehouse.io, what is it and what do you guys do?
Yeah, so DataWarehouse.io is a app company, and we build apps exclusively for the HubSpot ecosystem. We focus on data and enabling HubSpot users.
That's awesome. And obviously, data is the talk of the town these days. Everyone wants to get data into their systems. Tell me, where did this start? Why create apps to do this in the first place? How did this whole idea come about?
Yeah, that's a great question. You got to go back to the old times, before COVID, before the app marketplace was relaunched, before Elite Partners existed. Back in 2017, when I was just a baby in the HubSpot ecosystem, so to speak, we were working with a client. So we were a consultancy, we worked in Salesforce, and we were working with a client, and they had an interesting need. They had leads from another platform, and they needed to get those leads out of HubSpot into Power BI. So because that's where their partner was working in, and that's what they need. That their requirements was to get the information in there. And so there wasn't a native tool out there to get data at the time out of HubSpot really into anything. There were some solutions, but there wasn't a lot. They were very limited. So we put together the first app that we built, the Power BI connector. We made it for a customer. And then we thought to ourselves, they thought it was useful. Let's see if anyone else thinks it's useful. And a lot of time, a lot of patience, and a lot of customer support later, here we are. We've got 20 apps and more than just Power BI now.
And what would you say are some of your more popular apps? You have 20 of these, but what are majority you're seeing are the most commonly used or the most commonly asked for?
Yeah, so what I would say is internally, we group them into kind of three categories of apps, right? We have our ETL service, which is the Power BI connector. It's the Tableau connector. It gets data into Looker Studio. It gets data into Excel, into SQL. I mean, it gets data out of HubSpot into a database you provide, right? Of a multitude of formats. And so when we talk about what's the most popular app, we really think our ETL service is the most popular thing. It's not even one app, it's the grouping of the applications, because we have a lot of users, they go from one to the other. I would say that's our most popular one. And to your point, we have multiple apps. We have our migrator app, and that's something that the ecosystem has really been enjoying using. I think over the past 2 years since we released it, we went from 0 installs to I think we're at 2,200 now. It allows for schema replication from one portal to another, portal migrations, consolidations, but really it's all in the same focus, the same lane, which is HubSpot focused, data focused. And it's just a segue. I feel very strongly that if you're building apps for HubSpot, or if you're building apps for a platform, it's really important to stay hyper-focused and absolutely crush it at one specific niche first. I think a lot of people who are developing applications, they get distracted by feature creep and wanting to connect to 10,000 things. And then before you know it, you have an application that's middling at a lot and not excellent at one thing.
So in other words, focus, niche, get really good at that. And I think that's really great advice for any entrepreneur, whether or not you're building an app or you're building a professional services company, is the more focused you are, the more easier it is to sell customers, easier for the customer to know what it is that you're providing to them, which is excellent advice all around. When you look at you describe yourself as an ETL, and maybe for our guests who don't know what an ETL is, if you could spend a moment just to share what that means and why they can't just connect HubSpot to a Looker or Microsoft BI, and why they need a tool like this.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Sorry, I live in the technical world too often.
Oh, I know what it means.
I don't, but for the others, I don't get out much. ChatGPT has been my friend for the last year. No, in all seriousness, so it's extract, transform, load. Basically, what it means is get data out of a place, massage it gently, and load it somewhere else. That can be out of HubSpot into a database. It can be out of anything into anything, right? It's just a broad term encompassing the movement of information from one place to another and changing it, right? And so the reason why you can't really effectively directly connect the two platforms, several of these different sort of BI tools and things that we connect to, is in the name itself. It's the transform piece, right? Yeah. So HubSpot has grown into being a very complicated relational database. You've got contacts and companies, and you've got Service Hub, you have Sales Hub, you have Commerce Hub, you have Content Hub, you have AI systems, you have all this information. It's all stored in all of these disparate tables. They're all connected with different sort of joins and IDs that allow them to connect. Loading all of that information into Power BI or Tableau or a different BI tool natively directly via API, you're going to run into two problems. The first one is due to rate limits, the speed limit that APIs are allowed to run at, it's going to take you potentially hours to do a first data load and hours to do every refresh after that. When you use an ETL service like Data Warehouse.io, you get access to, or you bring your own database, and with that, you're able to cut down the refresh time dramatically from hours to minutes, because instead of saying, give me everything all the time, you're just saying, give me the things that have changed.
Yeah.
The second piece to it is when you're transforming the information, you're making it friendly for these other tools. You're making it natively integrated, where essentially when Power BI loads up, as an example, it looks at all these columns, and because we've done some neat transformations of things, it says, oh, okay, I know that these things are all connected. So you can load in 30, 40 data tables, and it goes spiderweb, connects all the information. If you try and do that directly, a lot of those connections you're going to have to make manually. You're going to have to figure it out. And so really it's, you use a tool like us to save yourself a lot of time and headache.
What is your advantage in the marketplace versus some of these other ETL tools?
It's a great question. So I would say that we have two advantages that are distinct to us. One, we focus exclusively on HubSpot. That allows us to be faster. When HubSpot pushes out an update, we're the first. Because we're not connecting to 1,000 other platforms. We had Commerce Hub integrated inside of our platform within a week and a half of Commerce Hub APIs being out. So with us, you get the updates as soon as they come out. So that's one advantage we have. The second advantage is by being super focused on HubSpot, this is getting back to entrepreneurship and focusing on what your niche is. It allows us to control our overhead. So if you are really focused on one thing, you can optimize the time you're spending on development by creating modules to roll things out. Because of that, our cost to maintain, support, and upgrade this system is much lower than it is for other providers. An excellent example would be our pricing model. So our pricing model is fixed. So you pay one thing for the connector. Any of our apps, it's all fixed pricing. That's not common. Go look at any ETL service that exists. They are all variable pricing based off of record consumption. And the problem that we have with that is twofold. One, we feel that it's not a pricing model that's like fundamentally designed to be user-friendly. You have to know how many records you have. And a lot of times that's an unknowable until you've turned it on. And what you don't want to do is flip the switch and say, okay, I don't think I have that much stuff. And then you turn it on, and then unbeknownst to you, there are millions of associations between all of these things. Your email is associated to 5 different things, and those 5 different things are associated to 40 different things. And before you know it, your 50,000 contacts results in 1.5 million records. And what should have been a free plan on another platform, day one, you're paying for their standard plan, right? And what I like to call that is it's accidental predatory pricing. It's risk-averse pricing for the developers. It's risk-averse pricing for the companies that are providing those services. but it's accidentally predatory because consumers don't end up really understanding what they're spending until they've already spent it. So with us, because we're focusing on one platform, we are able to reliably know how much data is going through just through seeing all of this HubSpot stuff all the time. So we charge a fixed price and we feel safe doing that. We don't have to do the risk averse pricing because we're not connecting to 100 different platforms.
And I also think that from your perspective, and you mentioned it earlier, whereby the actual pricing mechanism, because of how you focus on your niche market, your costs are less. How you deploy is less. So you're able to essentially pass on these savings to your customers. You're not saying how many different applications are we going to have to be able to connect application A to 1,000 applications, but these applications also need to connect to 1,000 other applications. And all of a sudden your costs start ballooning. You're building in costs for edge cases that maybe one or two of those customers will have, but you're then passing on those costs to all of the other customers, even though none of them are using maybe some of those applications. I think it's a brilliant idea for any entrepreneur out there, especially in this particular space, to say niche in that, like you guys have done. And so let me take a step back here. I think you understood from the standpoint how you differentiate. Your pricing's differentiated, how fast you go to market in terms of your ability to pull data and ability to connect to whatever new updates are coming out with HubSpot is differentiated. How do you see yourself fitting into the HubSpot ecosystem, or how does HubSpot see you guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't know if I can answer that for everyone on behalf of the thousands of employees at HubSpot. And certainly, I think we've interacted with at this point well over 1,000 different HubSpot people over the years. And what I could say is that I think we're viewed as a friendly, right? Like they know internally at HubSpot that their customers are going to get taken care of. Right? Because we're part of the ecosystem. We're part of the team, right? We're on Team Orange. We're not trying to get someone in our platform and upsell them and get them over here. And we're just trying to solve the problem, and we're charging a fair price. And I think that resonates because I think there's a lot of apprehension towards referring to a vendor thinking that it's going to slow down the close of a deal. When you work with us, I like to believe we've built up the confidence and trust that if you come to us and you say, oh, you need to connect to Power BI, use them, we're not going to get in the way of the deal, right? And I think that is helpful.
And do you notice, and if someone's going to come to, let's say, your website, or they're going to find you on the App Store, how simple is it to use it, the connector? Is it a lot of steps? You need to be technical? Can you just be a business user? Tell me more about the experience that a customer would have using this product. Yeah,
so I think actually the problem is sometimes it's too simple. Okay. Believe it or not. We get a lot of people who come in and they go, it was almost, they get apprehensive about it. It really is, go to the website, click on the product. It's almost like you're buying something off of Amazon, right? It's an app. We call it our integration store. You go add it to your cart, you go to checkout, you buy it, and then it's delivered to you via our user panel, and it's done.
Yeah,
it's very I think the only reason that we can do this reliably is because it's only HubSpot. To us, everything's known. We've been working in these APIs for so long. We've got version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4, right? We've worked in all of them. We know them better. I'll say this with confidence. We know the HubSpot APIs, I think, in the aggregate better than a lot of the people at HubSpot do at this point. Because we've just been working on them so long, on so many of them, that our team is so familiar. And as a result, we can just make judgment calls on certain things. And not to sound arrogant, sometimes internally we joke, we'll make a change to a piece of data or a call and we'll be like, it's because we know better. We know what the intent here is.
You're emailing the team over there. Yeah, you're emailing the team over there and be like, guys, you got to check this out. There's a better way of doing this.
Yeah. No, it happens, right? And so I think it's the simplicity of just being able to check out and get your solution delivered to you without too much hassle. It is very nice for our end users. And we like to, I really like what Steve Jobs said, and I know that's something people do all the time. It's like referencing the greats, but it really is true. Keep it stupid simple. Our HubSpot Migrator, the initial version of it, to migrate data from one portal to another was literally authorized source portal, authorized destination portal, swipe credit card. Done. Super simple. And the only reason it can be done that way because we have so much experience in the HubSpot ecosystem, we know what you're going to do. We know what the needs are. We know what the schemas are. We know what the field types are. If you're doing one portal to another, you really don't need to do a bunch of custom mapping. If you do, there are vendors for that can support that exercise, right? Like,
sure,
you guys can support that exercise, right? We're not trying to do services. We're trying to provide simple, easy-to-use applications that are usable by a user of any skill level.
I think that's brilliant. And there's an absolute need in the marketplace, as you guys have identified and proven out, that individuals want to be able to connect this data. And I think it was brilliant that you did it with the BI software out there. Because especially as a solutions partner, the amount of companies who are leveraging BI nowadays, who want the data out of their CRM into the BI to be able to manipulate it one way or another, is only ever going to be growing. And it continues to grow as companies get more advanced. So I think it's brilliant, which kind of leads me to my next question. What is the future roadmap for you guys? What does that look like? You have 20 apps out there now. Is it just continue developing more of these apps, finding more of these? And then how do you find what to work on next? Because I feel as if there's almost an unlimited number of opportunities out there for a company like yourself.
Yeah, it's a great question. In terms of the future, we like to stay hyper-focused, right? If we add a new product, we're committing to it 100%, which is a risky gambit. Right?
Sure.
That's why I think a lot of people are like, connect to 10 different things and see what sticks and then invest in those and just leave the others there and maybe someone will use it. And I don't know about all that, but it's a risky gambit to all in on something. And so we do have some new products that we're working on that'll be coming out soon. A good example would be when we talk about like investing into products, we like to evolve on what we build. We like to make modules and reuse those. It's efficient, allows us to scale with our small team. And so a good example would be, we just released a version of our migrator application called the Portal Toolkit. It's great for partners like yourselves that allows you to stage data in a sandbox, by creating full sandboxes, move workflows, move over your forms. Like it just a time-saving tool. It's a natural evolution from merging portals to copying, cloning, staging, making change sets, right? And so
Agreed.
The future for us is doubling down on the technology we've built and leveraging that to offer new solutions off of the framework of what we have today.
I think that's an absolutely brilliant idea. Not inventing anything necessarily new, but taking what you have now and just getting more out of it. Yeah. And I think too often companies try and reinvent or do something new. And if you think from a business perspective, as you described here earlier, this leads directly into why your costs are low. This leads why your team is lean. This leads why you have such expertise around one particular thing. And I think it's sometimes really hard to niche. In one sense, a lot of these shows I'm on, the story is very similar. It starts with a niche. It starts with a particular problem that they're trying to solve for, and then expanding upon that problem and continue to make their product better or software better around it. And I love how you guys are approaching this particular marketplace and saying, I've already built the underlying infrastructure. How do I extend it?
Yeah, it is a double-edged sword, I'll be honest, right? Because you go too hard in a particular direction and you just double down, and then the winds change on you, right? So a great example would be the paradigm shift that we're seeing in the ecosystem for solutions partners. So look at the HubSpot ecosystem 7 years ago and find me someone who says the word RevOps. It'll take you a while, right?
Yes,
it'll take you a while. If you hyper niche 7 years ago on providing the best quality pay-per-click ads, you're probably killing it. But if you don't pivot within the last 7 years, you're probably killed, right? That
correct.
is still true to apps. You can build a great app that solves for a very real problem. But if another piece of technology comes out that is going to make that problem no longer an issue anymore, it's up to you as a founder to pivot. So yes, we've hyper niched And that has allowed us to grow at a rate that we're very happy with. We last year around this time, we were at $1 million ARR, and we're closing in on 2. And that's a growth rate we're very happy with. But there's always the risk of a disruptor, right? And so one of my responsibilities is to diversify. So I think that if I had to do it again, I wouldn't change the way that we've done things, but I would probably diversify a bit sooner, right? When I say diversify, it's less about not focusing on HubSpot and not focusing on ETL, and more about finding other ways to brand what you're doing, finding ways to repackage it. This is an example that's before my time, but I've had people explain to me before. I do remember when VCRs existed. I do remember watching The Lion King on VCR.
Too.
Yeah. I was very young. I'm a 90s kid, not born in 1990. But I remember them. And my father, he explained to me once that one of the things that Sony did forever ago was they released these VCRs and they built the best one. And then to sell the consumer versions, they just took pieces out of it. It was the same blocks, the same technology, but they just removed parts. And so if there's something that I would have probably done sooner, would have been to do that. You build your MVP, obviously, as soon as possible, and you get that out to test the market. Then you build your best version. And we built our best version, I'd like to say, several years ago. And then we keep updating it. But I think taking out parts and letting people pick the things they want so that they get the solution they need instead of being forced into buying the whole package is something that we could have done better at. We probably still could do better at. It's something that HubSpot does an excellent job at. And if you look at their licensing change, that's the whole reason they've done it. The whole reason they've changed their licensing model is to allow small businesses to get the value of enterprise without having to spend an enterprise amount of dollars.
It is, I think, as far as I know, of the only, we'll call it enterprise software company allows you to buy one license, one enterprise license for $150 a month. Yeah. And you can unlock everything in HubSpot. It is absolutely incredible that more people don't take advantage of that opportunity. And I think it's all about putting the customer first. And you talked about that earlier with your pricing model, with your approach. I do think it is a double-edged sword. To your point, going niche and staying niche versus going broad. In some sense, you're more protected if you go broad, you could say, because in that particular scenario, you're less vulnerable to changes in that particular niche. But at the same time, you're increasing your cost. You got to have different talent. Things start changing. And then as you go broad, are you now going into a different market? How do you get that traction within that new market that you're going into? And I think companies struggle with this all the time. Do we say hyper-focused, or do we start going broad? And going back to your example earlier about pay-per-click, I know plenty of companies who are nervous as Google kept coming out with more and more features and capabilities to automate pay-per-click. What was going to happen to their business? Nothing. They're actually needed more now than ever because the amount of capabilities around pay-per-click, the amount of art as well as science around pay-per-click continues to evolve, that despite the fact that now you have technology that's automating a lot of that process, you still need experts. And as much as I think technology, you're going to continue to need the experts, you're going to continue to need the people who know it really well. And I think there is a lot of value in a company like yours who've gone niche and gone focused, because no matter what happens, people are still going to need access to these tools. They're still going to need to be able to integrate. But listen, as an entrepreneur, I get it. I get the challenges of saying what is going to be our long-term strategic direction. What I will say about this, you guys, I've known about you guys for years and the work you've done. I've had clients who've used you over the years, and it's an absolutely fantastic product.
Thank you.
And I want to encourage you guys to continue developing in this ecosystem. It's absolutely what HubSpot needs. And kudos to you guys. Kudos for you staying strong, because I could have seen it really easy years back. Being like, you know what, we're just going to expand to all these other platforms. And instead you said, nope, we're going to stay focused. And I know these are discussions you're having in your own head and you're having with your team all the time.
It's so easy to get distracted. It's like I think when you're young, I think you have lots of, and I'm still young. I'm not saying I'm old, but I think that when you're like a kid, like a child, right? 7, 8, 9, you're just like, what if someone could do this? I mean, like I've got my daughter is 2, and she just has these little thoughts. She's like, oh, we do that, we do this. And she's just always creative and thinking new ideas and things, right? And so we still have that in us as we grow older. It's tempered by the world, but it's still in us. Yes. And we, as business owners, you have to tap into that, but also let it know it's in boundaries. You're doing this and you're doing that, and then you've got the founder running around in 10 departments, and then you're pivoting and you're changing, and you can never get good enough at one thing. I see a lot of this, I think, unfortunately, in the ecosystem sometimes, is people are constantly worried, and they're making decisions from a defensive position, right? And they're saying, oh, this is changing, so we need to do this now, and this is changing, this is now. But if you believe in yourself, if you believe in your team, and you feel like you've got something that's different, and you really, truly believe it, the only way that you really succeed is if you go all in on that thing. If you look at all the big partners, all the major apps that exist in the world, they just sent it in a direction. They believed in it. They had that conviction. They had that belief. And that's how you get Facebooks and Googles and HubSpots, and Lord knows we're not going to be one of those. There's no plan on being one of those. My point is, the path to success is laden with choices, and you've got to be strong-willed enough to stay focused on your goal and not walk down these windy paths on the way there, or you'll never make it to the end.
Well put. And I'll end up by saying vision. Have vision. Aligns your teams, aligns everything. At OBO, we call it HubSpot Plus is our vision over here. Really putting the center around our customers and making sure that we help them take full advantage of their ecosystem and creating an amazing customer experience for each and every one of our clients, but really around HubSpot Plus and HubSpot being the core of what we do. This was awesome. James, thank you so much for coming on the show today. You gave such great advice. I hope any entrepreneur, business owner, leader listening leans into what James shared today and the success that you guys have had over the years. Just brilliant. Keep it up. We have clients who use you guys. It's absolutely fantastic. Check them out. That being said, that wraps us up for today. Thanks for joining us. Again, UpYourStack is a weekly podcast. Oh, thank you so much. And we're going to get more into where you can find out about James. Again, UpYourStack is a podcast that features HubSpots, features some of our favorite HubSpot app partners and developers, help you get the most out of your HubSpot tech stack. If you're interested to learn more about James, feel free to check him out on LinkedIn. And James, your last name is Elmer. I'm hopefully saying it correctly. And James, they should check out your website at www.datawarehouse.io.com. Is that correct?
Just datawarehouse.io. Yep.
.io. Okay, awesome. Datawarehouse.io. And also check them out on the HubSpot App Exchange. So many awesome reviews you'll see there as well. And if you're interested in leveling up your own HubSpot, feel free to reach out to OBO. We'd be happy to assist. You can check us out at www.theobogroup.com. James, thank you.